Lesson 2, commercial enablement challenges. We just talked about VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And since you're likely experiencing VUCA right now, it's important to remember that you'll develop techniques the more you lean into it. Also, remember you cannot control this, so it's best to turn it into an advantage. Those that can compete in a VUCA world will have a competitive advantage and elevate their role. One of the favorite quotes that Scott Santucci uses is this one from Mark Twain. He says, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble." So it's not what you don't know. It's not about acquiring more knowledge. It's not about what you don't know. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. In a VUCA environment, I see this over and over again, and I had a huge challenge with this myself, is what I knew for sure. And the more I realized that today's environment is different and leaned into that, the more results I got. But it's a different way of thinking. It's a massive shift. So sometimes I use the quote from Marshall Goldsmith, which is, "What got you here will not get you there." But this quote from Mark Twain does a better job at the total shift in thinking necessary to move forward in VUCA environments. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. You cannot read a book. You cannot acquire more knowledge. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. What do you know for sure? Are salespeople, do they need to be fixed? Is marketing a problem? Are salespeople a problem? If you just had sales management, if you just had that sales process that you were thinking of, you know for sure that those things would work because everybody else is using those. That's what you need to be questioning. It's not, it's what you know for sure. Because today, it just ain't so. So let's talk about what that looks like. In the commercial enablement space, there are 4 Ps that you can think of. What are you prioritizing? Well, in today's VUCA environment, it's more about the services that you're providing, not about the activities and projects you have. We're going to talk about services in a future course. And I'll go through how to start services, launch services, manage services, deploy and develop services, etc. The other piece is people. Your hiring profile of enablement has changed, and the enablement skills required have also changed. So how do you find the people you need to get this off the ground and to tune in with empathy when what's happening? Productivity. The commercial enablement team has very little production cycles available to it most of the time, yet you have to create new things. So how do you figure out the best use of the productivity that you have and where people are spending their time? Are they efficient and are they effective at what they're supposed to be doing? How do they develop their skills they need to create something from nothing? And then process. The commercial enablement function, what's the business process of it? What's the core business process of enablement? Is it documented or is everything a one-off? So these are the challenges that enablement leaders face today. They're challenges around prioritizing, elevating people, maintaining productivity, and streamlining process to make it more effective. We'll talk about how to tackle these things as we move forward, but just be in tune with them and realize that in a VUCA world, aligning people, productivity, process, and priorities is a must-have, and it's also part of your strategic approach. You'll be able to figure that out as you move through and figure out the initiatives you're working on, as well as your operating model that we talk through. Here's a question. In the Mark Twain quote, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." So what do you know for sure? Here's an example. Well, sales operations teams have been focusing on driving productivity for a long time, and they know what metrics to focus on that have the most meaning. Well, maybe that's not so. Most sales departments are focused on driving more and more activity, and they're over rotated to volume, and sales operations leaders are missing tectonic shifts in the market because of that, because the activity doesn't equate to where customers are. That's an example. There are fundamental beliefs in the sales organization that you should look at and that you should think through in order to figure out how to help your organization navigate. Because your customer's world is complex. On the customer side, there's increasingly complex problems, just like what you're facing. And there's cross-functional challenges, just like what you're facing. Many stakeholders are involved. Does that sound familiar? Expanding focus, expanding role of procurement, increased vendor options. There's a lot of complexity. Well, inside your company, there's a lot of complexity too. A lot of times your company is transforming its strategy and developing new solutions. There's also a challenge in configuring capabilities and developing messages that make sense to executives that you're selling to. Many people are siloed and hardwired to focus on their individual activity. There's inconsistent messaging, there's increased administrative burden and too much technology that make it difficult for salespeople to simplify. That's the world of enablement. When you think about going to market versus going to customer, salespeople have a lot of challenges. There's this shift in the sales model, job design, and at the individual level, the skills of salespeople is evolving. Salesforce structure is adapting and evolving to align to your business strategy. Your company's push to go to market doesn't necessarily translate into go to customer view, like we talked about in the previous lesson. This creates some challenges, and these challenges create inefficiency, and the salesperson gets stuck in the middle. This is the world of commercial enablement. Understanding that in your customer environment, your clients, your company's customers environment, they're experiencing VUCA. And in your environment, you have a lot of VUCA as well. And salespeople are stuck in the middle. If you can tackle the ecosystem, if you can streamline activity, streamline process, develop initiatives to relieve the burden from salespeople, they will be more successful. And remember, that's why we started with outcomes. The outcomes that you're trying to drive are usually rooted in this view. So stay focused on the outcomes. And the challenge that you're going to run into is helping other people internally align to the same outcomes that you have. So that's why a lot of these visuals and a lot of these tools are designed to help you bring other people along internally. So acknowledge that VUCA exists, don't ignore it. So I want you to go to your participant guide and look at your workbook for module 3, lesson 2, and take a few minutes in that participant guide to outline the volatility you've been experiencing in your role, the uncertainty you've been experiencing in your role, complexity you've been experiencing, and ambiguity that you've been experiencing. If you need to, go back to the definitions, watch the video again, replay this module. Everything's been clearly defined. What you need to do is translate it into what does it look like in your organization. You also have, in the next module, we'll talk about how do we counter these forces. So it's really important to take this inventory so that you have it and you're aware of it, because you'll want to lean into these things and turn them into a positive. Okay, so stop the video here, grab your participant guide, and spend time in the participant guide to outline how VUCA is affecting you in your role. Okay, welcome back. We can't plan for disruption, but we can prepare. That's really what this is about. I don't know exactly what it looks like in your environment. I did not know exactly what you wrote down, but there's patterns. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, it's the new normal. Accept it and prepare yourselves. And make sure you're tuning in to how you counter, meet, and respond to that complex environment. Your role is about embracing and tackling the environment around you and connecting the dots and orchestrating across that environment. That means you'll have to develop a lot of stakeholder relationships and process and techniques to be able to do that. This VUCA video is, and what I'm sharing here in this module, this lesson, are designed to help you socialize that VUCA is a real thing, and that why you're doing what you're doing is to combat those forces. In this module, we talked about orchestrating and embracing VUCA, not ignoring it. I also talked about how to inventory it, the forces at play, and developing approaches that we can take to lean in and embrace that VUCA is a real thing, and walk towards it and use it to our advantage. I talked through understanding these variables gives you unique influence to work across the organization and enroll others. I also talked about the idea that many times the organization gets into its own siloed view and doesn't recognize the core challenge. The core challenge is that salespeople are stuck in the middle. And also, by the way, the challenges that you're facing as an enablement leader are the exact same challenges that salespeople face. They have to connect the dots in their client organization that is experiencing these challenges as well. And those people don't work for them, right? You'll have the same challenge here. How do you orchestrate and connect the dots and help sell the vision, help enroll people to change and take action? That's the same thing. You're going to have to sell that. And that means enrolling people, meeting with them, talking about what the VUCA environment means to them, how that impacts them in their role, and begin to help them see what's possible with your services to help elevate the skills of salespeople by simplifying the ecosystem around them and providing the content, skills, and tools that salespeople need to have a relevant conversation. All right, that's been lesson 2. I'll see you in lesson 3.